You learn a lot doing research like this. The stories that haunt me most are the ones no one wants to talk about, the ones whispered between breaths, the ones hidden in cassette drawers, police evidence lockers, or buried deep in digital graveyards. The human voice can do strange things. It can comfort, it can command, but it can also chill the blood. And tonight, I want to tell you about 5 voices, 5 recordings that never should have existed. Recordings that were not designed to entertain, but to unnerve. They're not fiction. They're real. I've heard them. And once you do, you won't forget them. These aren't ghost stories. These are documented anomalies, inexplicable broadcasts, final words, twisted artifacts from humanity's shadow. They say the ear is the gateway to the soul. Let's test that theory, shall we? Our first stop, a college radio station, and a broadcast that was never supposed to happen. Part 1, the WKCR radio hijack. It was sometime in the mid-1990s. The exact year depends on who you ask. Some say it was 94, others swear by 97. The truth is, no one really knows. What we do know is this: for a few minutes, WKCR, the student-run station out of Columbia University, became a portal to something unexplainable. The hijack began with static. That wasn't unusual. College radio was notorious for poor signal strength back then. But then came the screech. Not just feedback, no. This was something else. A rising, warping metallic shriek that cracked and fizzed like a dying machine struggling to scream. That alone was enough to make listeners pause. Some even yanked the dials off their stereos. Others leaned closer. Then the voice came in. Female, calm, measured, like a schoolteacher reading from a list. J. Robert Oppenheimer, born April 22, 1904, died February 18, 1967. Then silence. Then another name. And another. A procession of the dead marched through the airwaves like some grim radio funeral. And just behind her voice, barely audible unless you strained, was the sound of something like bells. Not church bells, funeral bells. Distant, echoing, far-off tolls that rang hollow with something resembling finality. The woman continued, each name spoken with clinical detachment, each death pronounced as fact. Listeners reported a bizarre sensation, like being watched, like the voice was aware you were hearing it. And then, as suddenly as it began, it stopped, back to static, then music. No one at WKCR claimed responsibility, not the night DJ, not the sound engineer, not the producers. The FCC was contacted. They shrugged, said maybe it was a prank. But the oddest thing, there was no trace, no record of that broadcast in their logs. The station logs showed no break in programming. Yet dozens of listeners remember it. Some recorded it, others burned the tapes. A few said the names read out were people who hadn't died yet, but would go on to die within the same year. There was one particularly chilling account, a woman who said her brother's name was listed, along with his exact date of death. He was still alive when she heard it. 2 weeks later, he suffered a fatal accident on the New Jersey Turnpike. Coincidence? Probably. But then again, why did she destroy the tape? These aren't just stories. The audio exists. You can hear it. It's archived online, but no one knows who posted it. The voice is there, clear as day. The bells, the names, the sterile certainty of it all. It's not flashy. It's not theatrical. It's simply wrong, unnatural. You hear it and you feel it in your gut. This wasn't a pirate station or a prank. This was something else. A broadcast from somewhere or someone that knew too much, said too little, and disappeared without a trace. They say the dead can't speak, but what if that night they did? And what if we all heard them?
Another 1988 John Burns, son of John Senior Maryland, brother of Captain Chris, at the front of the senior December 21st, 1988, Barry Valentino, son of Barry Senior Jean, brother of Scott, Mark, and Lisa Ann's friend, my friend. February 1985, Frank Oppenheimer, brother of Robert, husband of Jackie and Willie, father of Michael, our friend. In 1987, Henrietta Graham, mother of Ian, in-law Sally, my friend. March 17, 1988, Edward McGellis, brother of William, June, May, and Peggy, father of Shirley, Alvy, and Geraldine. April 1988, Ruth Marnani, wife of Papa, friend of Bob and me. October 1988, Morgan Shoemake, father of Barbara, husband of Elsie, Barbara's dad. August 22nd, 1985, Irene McGellis de Tullio. Sister of Millie, Margaret, Dan, Tony, Ida, Dominic, Nair, Scat, Elvira, and Joe. Wife of William, mother of Mary Ann, grandmother of Liz and Billy. Me. July 4th, 1987, Peter Gunlock. Son of Robert, step of Kay. Brother of Bob, Karen, Cindy, and Mary. Husband of Lisa, father of Shady, Uncle Rick, and Lucy. My brother-in-law. November 1988, John Burns. Son of John Senior in Maryland. Brother of Kathy and Chris, step of friend of Lisa and Billy. December 21st, 1988, Barry Valentino. Son of Barry Senior and Jean. Brother Scott, Mark, and Lisa, Ann's friend. February 1985, Frank Oppenheimer. Brother of Robert, husband of Jackie and Millie, father of Michael. May 1987, Henrietta Graham. Mother of Ina, in-law Sally. March 17, 1988, Edward McGellis. Brother of William, June, May, father of Shirley, Alvy, and Geraldine. 1988, Ruth Marnani. Wife of Uncle, friend of Bob. October 1988, Morgan Shoemake. Brother of Barbara, husband of Elsie, kidney failure.
You're tuned to WKCR-FM New York, 89.9 on your dial. Colombian music is running a little late. It will be starting in a few minutes.
Part 2. The Night Stalker's Whisper. You ever answer the phone and feel a chill run down your spine? It's the middle of the day. Sun's pouring in through the window. You're folding laundry. Nothing strange about the moment at all, until the phone rings. It's not the ringtone that bothers you. It's the pause, that long, unnatural silence on the other end before anyone speaks. You say hello once, then again. Then, without warning, there's breathing. That's how it starts. It's how it started for many of the victims of the East Area. The original Night Stalker, later known as the Golden State Killer. A man who stalked California through the 70s and 80s, leaving a trail of shattered homes, terrified women, and devastated families. But his crimes weren't just physical. He weaponized fear itself, and he did it through the telephone. It's a scratchy recording. A voicemail pulled off an answering machine back when machines still used tape. The message isn't long. You hear the classic analog click, then breathing, heavy, labored, not quite panting, but like someone who's been watching, waiting. Then comes the whisper, "I'm going to kill you." That's all he says. Not loud, not angry, just certain. There's something about how he says it, like the thought doesn't bother him, like it's already decided, like you should know your fate, and he's just being polite enough to tell you ahead of time. The woman who received that message was one of his known targets. She had survived, but the voicemail came years later, long after she thought the nightmare was over. It wasn't. Law enforcement released the audio to the public, hoping someone would recognize the voice, but no one did. For decades, that recording remained one of the few pieces of evidence they had against a man who moved like a ghost and struck like a predator. Cold, calculated, cruel, The voice became infamous. Haunted YouTube compilations, Reddit threads. It was used in documentaries. And it wasn't the only call. Survivors, witnesses, even people never connected to the investigation reported receiving similar messages. Most didn't keep the tapes. You don't keep something like that. You burn it, smash it, hide it under 10 pounds of concrete. But that one tape survived. And if you listen closely, really listen, you can hear something behind the whisper, not just the breath, something fainter, like footsteps on gravel, like wind through the trees, like someone walking in circles while holding a phone just inches from their face. The breathing never changes. That's what makes it worse. He doesn't sound excited. He doesn't stammer. It's not a prank call. It's a promise. In that whisper, you can hear the echoes of every door he opened in the middle of the night. Every pair of eyes that opened to find him standing in the hallway. Every terrified moment frozen in amber. But here's what keeps people up at night. That message was left years after his last known attack, and he hadn't been caught. He could have been standing outside her window when he left that message. He could have been calling from across the street. And that call you got last week? The one where no one answered? Maybe it was nothing. Or maybe, Part 3, The Exorcism of Anneliese Michel. Most of us think of possession as the stuff of movies. A girl writhing in bed, eyes rolling back, crucifixes turning upside down. A priest in a dark coat chanting prayers into the void. But what if I told you it really happened? And what if I told you it was recorded? 1975, a quiet town in Bavaria, West Germany. A 23-year-old woman named Anneliese Michel began what would become one of the most disturbing and controversial exorcisms in modern history. Raised devoutly Catholic, Anneliese had been diagnosed with temporal lobe epilepsy as a teenager. But as the years passed, her condition took a darker turn. She began to see faces, not in dreams, in daylight. She heard voices. She claimed they weren't hers. They weren't human. They told her she was damned, that she would rot in hell, that she didn't belong to herself anymore. Psychiatrists prescribed medication. It didn't help. Her body grew frail, her mind fractured. She would scream for hours, tear the clothes from her body, eat insects from the floor. She began avoiding religious symbols, growling at the sight of a crucifix. Her family, devout as they were, grew terrified. And then, the church got involved. Two priests, Ernst Alt and Arnold Renz, were granted permission by the bishop to perform an exorcism, following the ancient Rituale Romanum. Over the next 10 months, Anneliese endured 67 exorcism sessions. 42 of them were recorded. The audio is almost unbearable. You hear her scream, but it's not the scream of a young woman in pain. It's lower, raspy, layered almost, like there's something else in the room, something speaking through her. Sometimes she doesn't speak German. Sometimes it's Latin or Aramaic. Names emerge: Judas, Nero, Hitler, Cain, Legion. She speaks in their voices, old, withered, inhuman. She screams about fire, flesh, betrayal, and torment. At one point she calls herself the Sow. At another she laughs, maniacally, ferally, like a wild animal wearing a human face. But what truly turns your blood cold isn't the volume, it's the silence. The brief, eerie pauses between outbursts, where you hear her breathing, like a cornered beast, like something is watching the priests, waiting to pounce. In those silences, you feel a pressure behind the audio, a presence. The priests can be heard praying, calm, steady. They say the names of saints. They beg the entities to leave her, but she resists, or rather, something resists. The tape clicks, another session. She cries, then she barks, she sobs, then she laughs, a deep, mocking rumble that does not belong in the lungs of a human woman. Many who've heard the full recordings, uncut, say they can't make it through. Some report headaches, nausea, feelings of dread that linger for days. Whether psychosomatic or not, that kind of unease isn't accidental, because you're not just listening to suffering, you're listening to a claim, a spiritual siege, the sound of something ancient. and angry. Anneliese Michel died on July 1, 1976. She weighed 68 pounds. Her knees were shattered from repeated genuflection. Her autopsy revealed signs of malnutrition, dehydration, and abuse. Her parents and the priests were put on trial for negligent homicide. They were found guilty, but they didn't recant. They swore to the very end that what they witnessed was real, that the devil had taken her, that the recordings were proof. To this day, the Vatican has never released an official stance on the case, but the tapes are out there, easily found. No warnings, no disclaimers, just raw audio of a woman caught between this world and something far darker. You can press play, but once you hear that voice, it might not leave you.
Sind wir schon drei?
Was soll er schneiden?
Kind Gottes.
Ich hab ein Maul erschlagen.
Namen des Vaters. Ruhe gibt's nur dort, wo die Liebe ist.
Ja, bei uns gibt's
Nur Hass.
Ja.
Und wo nur Hass ist, da gibt's keine Ruhe.
Nein. Und für uns gibt's nie Ruhe. Nie.
Weil
In der Ewigkeit. Die müssen in eigenen Seminaren ausgebildet werden, die dürfen nicht auf die anderen Universitäten. Kapiert?
Klar. Ist da sonst noch etwas zu sagen?
Weil
der Teufel größere Macht.
im Namen aller seligen Jungfrau, im Namen Jesu, befehle ich dir auszufahren, im Namen des dreifaltigen Gottes, des Vaters, im Namen des dreifaltigen Geistes, befehle ich dir auszufahren und nicht
Part 4. The Aztec Death Whistle. Small, no bigger than the palm of a hand, made of ceramic, skull-shaped with jagged teeth and wide dead eyes. At first glance, it looked like a child's toy, something carved crudely from clay. Then someone blew into it, and the air screamed. It's called the Aztec Death Whistle, and to this day we still don't fully understand it. Discovered in the 1990s during an excavation of a burial site near Tlatelolco, Mexico, this artifact was initially overlooked. It was found clutched in the skeletal hands of a human sacrifice. Just a trinket, the archaeologists thought. Some ritual decoration. They catalogued it, stored it, and moved on. Years later, during an educational demonstration, a researcher decided to test the whistle. After all, it had a small opening, like a flute or an ocarina. Might as well see what kind of sound it made. But what emerged from that whistle was not music. It was a wail, a shriek, a blood-curdling sound that seemed to come from the lungs of a dying man. Not melodic, not playful, not even rhythmic. Just pain, echoing, layered pain. It hit the ear like a chorus of screams, mixed with wind howling through a tomb. The room fell silent. Some covered their ears, others stepped back. A few cried. They had just heard something that hadn't echoed through this world in over 500 years. Later testing revealed what made the whistle so horrifying. Its internal chamber is built like a wind box, with chambers that split airwaves, creating chaotic vibrations. Unlike instruments designed for harmony, the death whistle is designed for chaos. It doesn't sing, it shatters. In battle, it's believed Aztec warriors would carry dozens of these, blowing them in unison as they charged. Imagine it, hundreds of warriors howling through the jungle, their shrieks amplified by the trees, bouncing between stone pyramids, echoing off the stars. To their enemies, it would sound like the jungle itself had come alive to scream. Not animals, not men, ghosts. It was psychological warfare, centuries before the term existed. Other historians believe the whistle was part of funerary rites, used in sacrifice, blown as the final breath of a victim escaped their lips. A call to Mictlantecutli, the Aztec god of death, a signal to the underworld that a soul was on its way. And when you hear it today, something inside you recognizes it. We're not talking about superstition. We're talking about biology. Researchers played the death whistle in clinical settings. Even among those who had no idea what it was, the reaction was the same. Elevated heart rate, pupil dilation, adrenaline spikes, fear. Not just discomfort, primal fear. Because your brain knows what it's hearing. It doesn't know why, but it knows it doesn't belong. You can find the recordings online. They're short but unforgettable. Some are studio captured, others played in old stone temples for effect. Either way, you'll feel it in your chest, like someone is screaming from inside you. It doesn't sound ancient, it sounds eternal. And that's the part that gets under your skin. This wasn't designed by an alien species. It wasn't a glitch. This was made, crafted, thought through. Someone, some ancient artisan, molded that clay, carved that skull, tested the sound and said, yes, this is the scream we need. They didn't want music. They wanted a voice for death. Part 5. The final transmission of Soyuz 1. April 23, 1967. The Soviet Union launches Soyuz 1, a prototype spacecraft carrying a single man, Vladimir Komarov. He was no rookie. Komarov was a decorated pilot, a cosmonaut, and a national hero. He was also a dead man the moment he strapped in. You see, Soyuz 1 was never ready for flight. Engineers knew it, scientists knew it, even Komarov knew it. The ship was rushed to launch for propaganda purposes, a desperate move to beat the United States during the space race. But internally, everyone was aware. The systems were flawed. The navigation was broken. The parachute system hadn't passed tests. Komarov's closest friend, Yuri Gagarin, the first man in space, begged officials to let him fly instead. Not out of glory, out of sacrifice. He knew Komarov would die, but the order came from above. Komarov accepted his fate with a grim sense of duty. He kissed his wife goodbye, looked his children in the eyes, and launched into the void. Soyuz 1 orbited the Earth once. Then things began to fail. The solar panels didn't deploy properly, leaving the ship crippled. Power was limited. Controls erratic. Komarov fought with the capsule, struggling to stabilize its path, but ground control knew the return wouldn't be clean. It would be hard, violent, maybe even impossible. Still, Komarov stayed calm. His voice, strong, steady, clear. But something changed during re-entry. As the capsule hurtled back into the atmosphere, a mechanical failure caused the parachutes to malfunction. The main chute didn't deploy. The backup twisted and tangled. There would be no soft landing, just fire, impact, oblivion, and the mic was still on. The last minute of Komarov's life was broadcast in real time, picked up not only by Soviet technicians, but by American intelligence listening in from Turkey. That recording still exists. What you hear is unlike anything ever captured before or since. At first there's panic, not fear, anger. Komarov screams at the engineers, cursing them, not just yelling, screaming, swearing vengeance, condemning the government, condemning himself. It's raw human fury, not because he's afraid to die, but because he knew this was going to happen. Because they let it happen anyway. "You bastards," he yells. "This ship was never safe. I told you all." Then, silence, but not peaceful silence. You can hear the capsule tearing apart, wind rushing past at terminal velocity, a deep, low rumble, like the belly of the sky is groaning. Metal screams, atmosphere tears. And underneath it all, one man, still alive, hurtling to earth, with nothing between him and the ground but failure and fire. The moment of impact isn't a bang. It's a crunch, a dull, wet collapse followed by static. And then, nothing. No heartbeat monitor, no final words, just a void where a man used to be. The Soviet government never released the official transmission, but fragments were leaked. Intelligence operatives preserved the signal. Audio experts confirmed its authenticity. You can find versions online, edited, cleaned, preserved in digital tombs. But the full raw tape, that's locked away. Maybe for good reason. What scares people most about the Soyuz recording isn't the science. It isn't the crash. It's the humanity, the voice. You can hear Komarov knowing he's going to die. You can hear a man, brave, brilliant, furious, spitting into the mouth of the abyss. Not going gently, not praying, not whispering goodbyes, raging, defiant, burning. His death marked a turning point in the space race. His scorched remains were returned in a sealed casket, his body unrecognizable, melted, compacted, martyred. But his voice lives. It rides the static of lost transmissions, the echoes of failed signals, the liminal space between Earth and silence. Sometimes I wonder, when we finally reach the stars, when we finally break free of our gravity and settle in that dark forever, will his voice be there, drifting between worlds, still falling, still screaming? And now, here we are, 5 recordings, 5 echoes through time, each one a crack in reality, a window into something colder, raw, and more unexplainable than we're meant to handle. You've heard of the power of sight, but it's the ear that opens deeper, that bypasses logic, that drills straight into the gut. Audio doesn't give you a chance to filter or rationalize. You don't see it coming, you feel it. A screech from a hijacked radio signal, whispering death before its time. A killer breathing into your phone, promising you won't wake up. A girl possessed, her soul tearing through her throat. A whistle that screams for forgotten gods beneath the jungle floor. And a cosmonaut falling from heaven, cursing humanity as he burns. They're real. They were recorded. And whether you believe or not, the sound exists. It's out there, waiting. And every time someone presses play, they live again, just for a moment. The voice returns. The scream is reborn. The silence shattered. So tonight, before you sleep, think about what you let in. Because sound is a door, and some doors should never be opened.